Well, hey there everyone. So this week I had something completely different planned, and then my serotonin took the wheels and told me that I'm gonna make Bilbo's costume from The Hobbit. And in light of the new Amazon show, I've been binging the extended version of Lord of the Rings, and I'm watching The Hobbit, so I am in the Lord of the Rings mindset right now, which is the best place to be. So I had a very busy week with crocheting. I had a lot of orders to do. And so that didn't leave me a lot of time to actually sew. So I'm very sorry to be doing this, but this is gonna be a two-parter because I did not have enough time to finish all the pieces that I have to make for Bilbo's costume. So I'm sorry, but it's gonna be two-parter, and I think you're gonna be happy with the results with what I've made so far. So what I'm gonna be showing this week is I'm gonna be showing the making of the shirt and of the jacket, and then next week will be the making of the green vest that Bilbo has and the pants. Anyway, so for this week, so for the shirt, by the way, all of the items are completely thrifted. Even the red corduroy that I got for the jacket that I think I got a few months ago. I found just like this big thing of red corduroy at Goodwill, and so I was like, I'm not gonna not pick it up. I mean, it's a great thing of material. So I picked it up, and who'd have thunk I would have had this kind of use for it. And then for the shirt, I have an like off-white sheet. I have like a lot of white sheets, but Hobbits don't really have anything that's like stark white. So I opted to use this off-white sheet that I had to do the shirt out of. Let me go get those patterns really fast. Okay, so I just wanted to show really quickly the patterns that I used. Beep. Yeah, there you go. Censored. How dare you expose yourself? I just wanted to show the pattern that I used for both the shirt and the jacket. I actually used the same pattern. I just made a little bit different adjustments for each. So it's McCall's 8339, probably from like 20 years ago. I used this one specifically. Yeah, there's like a nice, yeah. For reference, I use, so it's size 16 through 20. I use size 20. So yeah, that's the pattern that I used for both. Actually, I had a different pattern for the jacket, but it was like really long, and the problem is I know that Bilbo's jacket is long, but I did not have enough corduroy to do like a super long jacket. I literally had to use what I had, which was barely enough, and I managed to do it. So I basically just took the same pattern that I did for the shirt, made it longer, made it just a bit bigger, and then I changed the collar and stuff, which you will see. So yeah, I am very excited for this project, especially for what I've done so far. Anyway, I will meet you back here for that final look of those two pieces. Let's get to some sewing. So again, for this pattern, I used McCall's 8339, and this is actually a dress pattern. It's actually the same dress pattern that I used for my adventure dress, the white underdress. But I am just using the bodice pattern and the sleeves for it, and not adding the skirt, obviously. So I use this because it's a pretty nice button-down shirt with the pattern. So I'm just cutting it out of this sheet material, and I'm cutting out the back and the front bodice. I actually had to recut the back bodice because I forgot to put it on a fold, so just ignore that I showed that back bodice there. And then I cut out the collar and the cuffs in the same thing as well. For the sleeve, I wanted mine to be a bit poofier, so what I did was I traced out the top of the sleeve pattern, and then I cut it out into sections, and then I spread those sections out, and that gives me a bigger puffy sleeve so that when I sew onto the bodice I can ruffle it at the top. And that also does the same for the cuff, so it makes the cuff a bit bigger so that when I add it, it is also ruffled down there. So the first step of sewing this bodice together is sewing the front bodice pieces to the back bodice piece at the side seam. Then you sew the top of the bodice together. Now it's onto the sleeves, so you just turn them right sides together and sew along the long edge, and then you can go ahead and attach them to your bodice. Now that that step's done, it's time to iron the interfacing onto the two cuff pieces and to the collar piece. So the instructions for this say to put a wet towel over it to iron it, so I just went ahead and did that with each of these. After you do that, you take the cuff piece with the interfacing and then you put it right sides together with the cuff piece without the interfacing, and then you sew all along the outside edge except for the bottom so that you can turn it right side out. Then the same is done with the collar piece. Before I sewed on the collar, I just went ahead and turned in the inner seam of the front of the bodice so I can make a space for my buttons, and I just sewed along the outside of that and along the outer edge. Now it's time to get the collar sewn on, so what I did is I sandwiched the shirt inside of the collar, and I did have a little bit of extra, so I just did a tiny pleat in the back and then I just sewed right on top of that. After that, I went ahead and hemmed the bottom. And then the final step to this shirt is just putting on the buttons, so I just spaced it out every 2 inches, and that gives me my buttons. Now onto the jacket. So again, I just used the same bodice pattern as I used for the shirt. I just made it a bit longer and a bit wider just to make it appear bigger than it actually is. And so the first step is to sew the front pieces onto the back bodice with the right sides together. Then you sew the top of the bodice together. And then for this arm, I didn't have to spread it out because I wanted it to fit exactly with the sleeves. So you just put it right sides together and sew along that long edge, and then you can go ahead and sew it onto your shirt. So what I ended up doing for the front of the jacket is I just took that extra that I had on the opening and I folded it right sides together, and I just sewed a little curve up the top because if you look at Bilbo's jacket, his collar is curved, not pointed. So I just sewed a little curve there and then I turned it right side out, and that gives me that nice finished look when the edges hang open. Now for the collar, I wasn't able to cut it on a fold because I literally did not have enough material to do that. So with the material that I had to cut 4 pieces. So what I'm doing here is I'm just sewing the 2 pieces right sides together so that when it opens, it is one collar, and that gives me the 2 outer and the lining of the collar. So once those are sewn together and pretend like it's all one piece, you just lay the 2 on top of each other right sides together and you sew along the outer edge, and then you turn it right side out when you're done. And then like I said, his collar is curved, so I sewed a curve, so I'm just cutting off the point and cutting it close to the sewing that I did. I found that I did have to sew a bit of a more intense angle at the bottom just to make it fit the collar better because it was a little wide and it was extending past where my front of my shirt was, so I just sewed a little bit more of an angle so it could fit the neck perfectly. And then to sandwich this, I did seam rip up just like half an inch, just so I could literally sandwich it into the collar, and then it would just sew right on top. After that, I went ahead and sewed the cuffs of each of the sleeves. Then I just sewed the hem of the jacket. Now Bilbo's jacket does have a little pocket on the side, so with what you can see, like the last material I have left of this, I just cut 2 little rectangles, and then I'm just gonna turn it right sides together, sew along all but the edge, and then turn it right sides out, and then just sew it straight on so it's a fake looking pocket. The last step was to sew the buttonholes and sew the buttons on, and it was all done. here's part 1. So I think this turned out pretty dang good with what I had, especially the corduroy, because I literally had like just enough to do what I could with it. And especially when I cut out the front pieces, I made it a bit longer. So I didn't even think about it, but that allowed me to be able to do this kind of thing. And so when it's, turned out like this, it actually looks nice. Otherwise, I was just planning on kind of doing the same thing I did with the shirt here, just folding it over and adding the buttons, but I'm glad I didn't. Yes, the pocket is fake, because I didn't feel like making a real pocket, but I had to add the thing. So it looks like his pocket. I like the buttons that I added here. I almost just added like the wooden buttons, like these guys I have here, just because I had them, and then I ended up going to the store and getting these polished looking ones, because his are actually really cute, actually, on it, like his vest at least. They're acorn buttons made of brass, and they're really cute. But alas, I just have these menial ones. So yeah, and then the shirt's really good too. You'll barely even see it, but it is a shirt that I'll be able to use for like everything else too, just because it's a nice shirt. I'm really lucky that I was able to find this corduroy at a Goodwill for just a few dollars. I kind of wish I didn't use it to make the bottom of the overalls that I made in a video a few weeks ago, because then I would have had more, but I didn't think I would be making a Bilbo jacket. So alas, this is what I have, and I think it turned out really good with what I had. The sleeves are a little bit short, but again, that's all I had to work with. So I mean, considering all that, with this being a completely thrifted matching pair along with the pants and the vest that I'll be showing next week, it's going pretty well. I did order some suspenders from Amazon that will be coming, that will go underneath the jacket and the vest and over the shirt, so you won't see them unless I don't have the vest on, but it's part of the costume. So I really hope you stick around for next week when I show the completed look. I also ordered some Hobbit ears. I did kind of want to make some, but with my skill set, I did not see that possible right now. For now, I just ordered some cheap plastic ones off of Amazon as well. So those two, the ears and the suspenders, are the only items that will not be thrifted / homemade. So considering that, I think this looks going pretty well. So anyways, stick around for part 2 where I show the completed look. I hope you like what I did this week. So if you did, go and like and subscribe. I post most Fridays, mostly at noon, and I will see you next week. Thank you for watching.